Good evening, viewers. The Idea Factory welcomes you to yet another exciting discussion over the weekend. And as always, we explore various topics and analyze them and throw some interesting thought processes around that. Today, we have with us leadership and executive coach, Mr. Sushant Sharma, and we will continue our discussions with him uh, over the previous discussion topics. You remember we discussed last time the performance of businesses on a VUCA world. By VUCA, we meant volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And more and more ambiguity is coming as business climate is getting more complex. And there are a lot of confusion in the business market. Today, we are going to discuss a topic which is called sustainability of startups. As we all know, startups have been defining India for a while now, especially during the COVID times. And a lot of startups have come up recently and, redefining the way people do business and the way customers live their lives. So both ways, it's a win-win proposition. The businesses are redefining the various applications as well as customers are lives are getting more and more easier. We are working from home, we are getting more things are being delivered at home, and so a lot of things are coming at our doorstep instead of we stepping out of the homes. But at the same time, we also have to understand, while we only hear only the successful stories hit the headlines of newspapers and media channels, there are a lot many startups who are actually not able to make up to the newspaper headline. In fact, before that, many startups do not even survive beyond a certain point in time. Today, therefore, we have taken a very sensitive topic called sustainability of startups, and Mr. Sushant Sharma has been working on it for a while as well. So let us start the discussion by asking him, Mr. Sushant, what is the landscape of startups within the country?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Majumdar. Thank you for inviting me here. Thank you for having me. As we discussed earlier, also, India has the third largest startup ecosystem in the world. India has the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, which is over 60,000 startups are there already, out of which 65 unicorns are there. Like, who is a unicorn? Unicorn is someone who has reached 1 billion in valuations. So there are more than 65 unicorns in India which have reached a valuation of 1 billion US dollars, which is a good number. In multiple industries they have, right? 90% of, however, are the enterprise likely to fail within first 5 years. That is also a fact. We talk about there are 90% of startups, they're likely to fail within first 5 years, which makes it difficult market to break into, actually. So survival is so very difficult, actually. So let's talk about the hidden pitfalls of the Indian startup market. Let's talk about that. See, the pandemic has accelerated digital adoption by organizations worldwide. I'm sure you will agree with the fact. The pandemic has created a lot of digital adoption. People have become online, like the payments are starting getting online, the education is being delivered online, networking is getting done on online. So it's easing the flow of the cross-border investments. Such as investors can now quickly assess information on foreign startups and their operating environments. See, the thing is, many global investors are therefore exploring the large and booming startup markets in the emerging economy, particularly China and India. Let's have a fact of this. The digital startups we talk about, India has the third largest startup ecosystem globally with over 60,000 startups in across 642 districts. So it shows it's not like, there are centers like Bangalore is a good center. Delhi NCR is one of the best centers where a lot of startups are already there. But other than that, also 642 districts. And we have almost every district, there is some other startup which is working, which is a positive picture, actually. So money pouring in with the major foreign investors are actually coming into market. Which one data which says number of unicorns in India are 65, as we said, while the US has more than 500 unicorns. China has more than 173 unicorns. So it is the third largest number. Like countries like Germany, France, Brazil, Canada, Singapore, even they do not have this much. UK do not have this many unicorns, which is a very bright picture, which shows the strength, underlying strength in the Indian economy. Having said that, we talk about later on, like, what are the one data I have, which I would like to share with you all guys, e-commerce and direct to consumer. If you talk about 100, a pie chart of 100, there are 25% are companies who are direct to consumers. They are in e-commerce or D2C sector. Then there is fintech also. 23% fintech companies are already there in the market. Now, what kind of companies are, when you talk about startups, what are the sectors, primary sectors companies are? The first is e-commerce, D2C sector, e-commerce, and another is fintech. Then we have internet software and services, SaaS, service of software as an, service as an internet. So there are at least 18% are market. Out of which means out of 100 companies, 18 companies belong to SaaS. Then supply chain, logistics, and delivery. 11% are into supply chain and logistics delivery also. Then we have edtech also. We have health tech companies also. Various companies are there which are working in the startup ecosystem. Now, let's just talk about what are the number of Indian companies founded by major foreign investors. Who are the major foreign investors currently in India? Like Tiger Global Management. Tiger is one of the good VCs and PE company. They have more than 11. They have funded 11 startups so far. SoftBank Groups 13. Sequoia Capital is 24. Northwest Partners 5. So there are various companies which actually, they have invested in India. But now, despite the optimism surrounding Indian startups, it is estimated that 90% of that are likely to fall within first 5 years. Now, this is a fact actually. In spite of such a rosy picture, they also know they are not going to survive more than 5 years unless until they adapt themselves to the flexibility, how flexible they are, how quick they are to the changes. So global investors must therefore look for hidden pitfalls before they take the plunge. Now, another thing I would like to express here is Indian entrepreneurs differ from their Western counterparts, how they view the world. There's a social cultural dissonance actually. That's where that separates them actually. So how it is? There have also been cases of early stage Indian startups sludging investors. The It is common for Indian startups to have family membership, like key leadership roles. Replacing them is never easy. Implying them conflicts over governance issues may potentially arise in future of Indian founding families reluctance to code and seed and control even. Many times, what are the reasons of failures? Why they have failed? Like they have misjudged the market and the customer. The judgment of the market has not been proper. We will come on to that later on stage. In the meanwhile, I would like to ask you one more question, like with regard to startup only. We'll just since we just started talking about it, and let's take care of the time as well because we have 40 minutes, right? So coming back to you on this, I would like to have your opinion on what is the survival ratio and why. What do you think? What are your thoughts on that?
Right. As you have already shared certain statistics, I think more or less these statistics are already known to you or shared by you. Uh,
Yeah.
but just to highlight, yes, you are actually right. Recent statistics have actually said 9 out of 10 startups do fail within 5 years, which means the survival ratio is only 1 out of 10 or 10%,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually a very, very minimal ratio. So
Yeah.
survival means, they stay along, they don't shut down. That means only one of them continue their shop, but whereas 9 of them shut down. Whereas if you are looking at the headlines that reaches the newspapers, which are the Byju's and Nika and all the big names, the success ratio of such companies is 1 out of 1,000. That means 9 out of 999 companies do not reach the headlines. It's one of them. So if you study only those successful companies, you will actually be, of course, getting a lot of learnings from them. But you also have to understand that business is not so easy, even in a country such a large domestic market like India. Even when you are with such an exciting startup, ecosystem around, people are talking, the government is supporting, yet the success ratio is so less, which means that building a business, as you rightly put in the VUCA world, is not so easy. And even recently, if you have seen that there are so many layoff stories coming up, all the big ones, the ones that we are actually, which have already hit the headlines of the newspapers, they are all laying off people across the board. And there's a large hue and cry as to how can these people actually lay off so many people unilaterally when their actually businesses are supposed to take up. beyond that. It also means that the businesses perhaps may not be able to understand the underlying themes of the VUCA world, because just because it was COVID, everything was tech, people were locked at home, so obviously tech people consumed tech. But as soon as the lockdown is over, tech they take the secondary seat, and people are actually moving out to the physical. So your ed tech is taking a slow down. All the other various other ones which are fully tech dependent, they are people are also looking at choices between physical and tech. So basically, India is going through a very big turmoil, and perhaps the world also. Even recently, we were also reading that there's a huge slowdown and layoff happening in the world also at this point in time. The world has also not come to grips with this VUCA. So VUCA is not something that only India has not been able to handle, but even the developed economies are also not been able to handle. So it's a very grave area, and we have to find our way to navigate the uncertainties of business, but still do business. Okay. And typically, if you look at the main reason why survival is not possible, let us understand that because it is lack of funds. You put in a certain amount of money, and if you do not get your revenues within a shorter period, very short period of time, your funds get dried up, and you have no choice but to shut down the business. There are so many stories where people have actually shut. In fact, in my association with the businesses also, I can recall at least one or two people with whom I interacted at the initial stages of my association, and they were so gung ho about the startup. They were also in the similar field like mine, and we thought of collaborating. A little bit of gap, and after maybe 1.5 years, when I connect back to them, I find they have already changed. They've gone back to job because they have not been able to have the steam of building up the business over. So you shut down your startup which you have invested. You had a team of people, you had a website, there were customers around, and suddenly you go back to your job. This is also a reality, because doing business for a startup is not so easy. You don't have the brand name, you don't have the right connections, you don't have the government support, and yet you want customers to buy, and that's a huge vicious circle you have to overcome to reach the level of Byju's and Leica and things like that. So typically, the lack of revenue become the main reason, or you call it bankruptcy also. But yeah, yes, if businesses are bankrupt, because they have their own funds, no doubt, but they also take money from the market. Their investors are putting the money, and suddenly your revenues are not coming. Also, then another reason that have been found out is that most of these startups that have actually failed do not have a unique business model or a USP or a competitive advantage. So, which we have always been harping in all our sessions in terms of innovation. Are you bringing something new to the market? To what extent it is different from what already exists? That also has been seen as one of the major reasons why businesses lose steam over a period of time. They might have started, for example, I remember the Momo story, and Momos are maybe not available in one pocket of the business of India. And once you start a startup there, it will sell like hotcakes, because momos are not very safe. But when you scale up pan India, you will see that momos are already available. So you have to reinvent yourself, then have a different product for a different market. And as you rightly said, every place is different, regions are different, states are different. A national success story is built up over state success stories. If you are successful in a state, and if you are successful in multiple states, then only you can be successful in India. And the as a national, fortunately, post COVID or during these technology periods, we are talking of state independent business model, wherein you can connect to someone in Delhi, in Bombay, in Calcutta, and Madras, all at one go. But at the same time, you will also have to understand these are unique differences. There are different requirements of people in these places, and you have to have a sense of the requirements of these people, and your product and services have to slightly alter or vary depending upon the requirements of the market. So these are tricky areas, and it's easy to say that I'm in business, but at the same time, when you go to the ground realities, it's very, very difficult to build a scalable, successful model. At the same time, we also have to understand that the funding has already started drying up, because many of these businesses have actually not shown the results. Initially, there was a phase when funding was coming, gung and ho, and a lot of startups have got funded, but once they are, as you can understand, many of them have not been able to keep up to the expectation. The funding people or the investors have started losing money, because they also take a risk along with the startup founder. But if the startup founder falters, of course, the investor also falls, and they have tightened up their money. And nowadays, and as time is passing out, as more and more stories are coming up, funding is also drying up. So we are in a, as you can, we are still in a VUCA world, and we are trying to find out a way to navigate the uncertainties of business to develop and to go into the next level. But at the same time, there are businesses who are, on one side you have the failure stories, on the other side you also have the success stories. So we have to take learning from both and see what suits each one of us in the businesses. With this kind of a little bit of point, I would like to ask Mr. Sushant. Mr. Sushant, if you can tell us a little bit about the valuation game that is happening.
Okay. Well, the valuation game which happens in India or for the startup ecosystem per se, if we talk about, I'm sure many of investors or many of the layman, they get so many times they're very curious. Ki how come somebody is raising 100 crores, someone is raising 250 crores, 500 crores? Those are big figures. How do you manage the small startups? How do they manage that? And what actually makes them? Why the startup and entrepreneurs? What kind of a thought process they have once they start doing it? Or see, economy times even came up. ET also came up with certain pointers on that. That entrepreneurs and investor, rather than capital goods and talks about social media funding platforms, they need to talk about profit pools. They're chasing profit pools, basically where they are like let's just take an example. India's new age companies like must prioritize value creation. I would say they have to have, rather than chasing the investor, chase the customer. Make sure the business model is sustainable. That sustainability will bring them more profits. So, like they need to prioritize value creation over valuation, and rather than capital profit pools, rather than capital pools, they said where he highlighted like stand up startup building. If I talk about startup building innovations, the bottom of the pyramid problems, they have the problems. Startups, all they're chasing is the top line growth and bottom line. But that is okay, but how do you ensure that the business model is sustainable? It's not only about creating valuation. Okay, how much the last 2 years profits based on that 6 PE, 6 times you will make it, and that's how you get a valuation game. Rather than that, if they would say let's just we talk about earlier also few things. The founder of the matchmaking service Shadi.com, if I take an example of Shadi.com, he had not had a front row seat to the evaluation of the Indian enterprise ecosystem, because he's someone I've been seeing last 20 years. He's into startup and all those things. Even he also said that over the past 2 decades, during which he has made an investment of 200 odd startups, he has actually invested in more than 200 startups, including 30 investments through Shark Tech India also, he did recently. Mittal said, what he said that he continues to remain excited about the growth prospects of Indian startups, making around 25 investments a year through Shark Tank. He spoke about this, and the during the keynote speaker, if you talk about that, what was his main concern? The seasoned entrepreneur angel investor shared valuable learnings from his own entrepreneurial journey, brand building, and startup investing journey. Because eventually, it's all about, are you able to create value for the investor? Are you able to create value for the person who is actually paying and using your product? Rather than investor, first focus on the customer. Like there is a hierarchy, complete hierarchy. First focus on employees, employee first, customer second, investor is the third one. That is the hierarchy they need to fix. Employee first, customer second, and then comes the investor. So let's not just chase the investor. Okay, I just have to chase investor. If my valuation is this much, I'll be able to make. As from the beginning, we have been telling you, within 5 years, 90% of the startups do not, they are just not able to perform as per the expectations. So why? Because there is a reason behind it. They're just not able to they have not done the right homework, the sustainability. Because eventually, what is important is the sustainability. Are these companies able to survive 2 years, 3 years from down the line? How do they outwit the competition? What is their strategy? What is the day to day? How the day to day functioning matters. Because suppose once they have raised the money, what they're going to do with the money, that is also very important. It's not just siphoning of the funds. Once you're able to raise 50 crores, 100 crores, and then there's no accountability. Does it work this way? No. Accountability is a must. Promoters also need to have a proper, they need to given into the auditing systems as well. how the money is being spent. What is the end use of funds? End use of funds makes a lot of difference. So valuation games, yes, there are valuation games happens in India and other startup companies also, but and that is the very reason even startups also take their own call. And me being in this sector, I know very well more than 95% of the funding proposals are rejected at the first or second level only. 95% of proposals are just not accepted. Why? Because they know there is some kind of fudging of data is there and extrapolation of data is there. So that kind of games does happen in the market. But of course, eventually, what matters is, are you able to create value for the customer first? Have you been able to notice what is the problem you are addressing? Then comes what is the solution you are providing. So between that problem and solution only exists your value creation. So that's how so very important is all this. So coming back to you on this, Abir, I would like to talk about what do you think? What is sustainability game? If we talk about how, what are your thoughts on sustainability?
Right. It's a very big talk because sustainability, as we have actually told you, that sustainability means how whether the organization will continue in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and whether you are building a model which is scalable in the medium to short term, or is it entrepreneurs also we have to look at it from the entrepreneurial mindset also, and we have to look at to what extent is the entrepreneur looking at. There are stories of entrepreneurs who have actually built up the valuation, made the money, and exited the business. These are called serial entrepreneurs, and they are there only for the money. Okay, whereas there are other entrepreneurs who are actually, putting their heart and soul in building their business, and trying to build a long-lasting organization. So there are both sides of entrepreneurs, and I'm sure there are various other categories as well. But here, let us look at what you are actually, since here we are talking of a sustainable, long lasting organization. Obviously, we would like to understand that the faith and the foresight of the entrepreneur is very important. More than the foresight, faith also has to be more important, because if you are into that game, when you are actually choosing entrepreneurship, you'll have to understand that this is not an easy road. And there will be pitfalls, there will be walls, whether you'll be able to maneuver and go beyond around the walls and find out ways, lanes and by lanes on the road, just like in every road that you find out ways and means to go. So the faith is very, very important. A certain amount of foresight is also important. As we said, until and unless your product or the service is unique, or cannot copy it overnight, you will be actually building yourself. It will succeed for a short period of time, but after that it will not be scalable, because then the market has already got consumed, and perhaps there are other businesses who are better than you in that process. At the same time, we also have to look at the ethics of the entrepreneur. This is very, very important, because here we are, setting the ground rules on the basics of startup. And here the ethics of the entrepreneur is very more than the investor, more than the customer. I think the entrepreneur or the team of entrepreneurs who are building up the organization, the ethics is very important. And lastly, we talk about the financial backup, because we know that if you initially you don't know, you don't have a data point. Just like in a job, you have a data point, you'll get a salary at the end of the month. But in an entrepreneurial journey, when you are setting it, you do not have that data point when you're going to get the revenue from the customer. It is absolutely out of your control at that point in time. It will only improve over time, but you don't cannot predict the data points of yours. So it's important to have a certain amount of financial backup. And as I've already told you, not only you have to put in your own money, you later on you also have to put up the money of the investors. It's a huge financial responsibility of you. And if you can build it, you can change the world. But if you cannot, you also have to take the brick bats also. So it's a very tricky situation. So entrepreneurs, we recommend entrepreneurs should think 10 times before they actually venture into this kind of journey, and whether they'll be able to make it big or not. More than anything, it is not that you have to be a unicorn or something like that, but an entrepreneur can definitely has the power to change the world, and that should be your vision or your thought process actually should be the starting point and should carry you along as you go along. Also, as we told you, a very strong business foundation is important. It is not that you quickly collect a few things, do get and build up a business which is after some point in time, people are questioning the whole business model. There are so many businesses who are even a business like Byju's, we are questioning the business model vehicle. After going so hard, they have gone worldwide. Even today, it is falling like nine pins. And so you also have to build a very strong business foundation and do not rush into it. You can get a co-founder. It is important to strong and a differentiated product or a service. Also to have a short-term and a long-term plan. Also to have an understanding of the initial set of customers when you go for the in the pilot study, when you go for the initial set of customers, whether you are actually meeting the expectation, as you rightly said, whether you can meet the expectations of the customer, and tomorrow's customer, whether you'll be able to meet up the expectations of tomorrow's customer. Also to have a certain amount of dynamics in the whole process, because your business model is not a rigid model, it's a dynamic evolving model, which is kind of a closed loop, which takes inputs from various places and adjusts itself regularly, and thereby build a revenue model along the way. There are also times initially, we have to do certain things ourselves or get it done from outsiders. So the make or buy mix is very, very important. Of course, make is in a long term process. Make is always advisable or over buy, provided you have the competence to do it. So if you can choose, if you have the competence, it's always better to do the make. And things which you do not have the competence, you can always outsource it or buy it from outside. So it's a mix and match of everything, but take some time to understand the elements of your business model and whether you can build a certain revenue and a profitable model around it. And that takes a bit of a time. There is no timeline to it, so maybe you can do it at your own pace, but it is important to do a strong business foundation before you go to the next level or the next level or the next level. As we all see that most of the businesses today are on technology platforms. Technology also gives them the ease. You have less people, and it allows the customer to access you whenever they want to. It also gets the updates and information at various points in time, and that way this becomes a technology is very, very important at this point in time. Okay. Also, 1 minute please. Yeah. Also, for a sustainable business, you also have to understand that the customer needs your product. It is cannot be, manufactured, or, you can create a demand artificially. It will not last for a real piece of time. So you have to find out a niche or an area where a customer needs demand. You can be the first mover. Definitely, you can be the guy who, already applies in an existing market with an improved version of the product, or you can create a new product. But remember that you must be sure of the customer demand in the short term, medium term, and the long term. In terms of the profitability model, we have already told in the previous sessions, and we are again telling you the low price high volume model is perhaps the best model to scalable it out, rather than you have a very high price product at your end, and customer not even, it's not even within the capability of the regular customer. There, I'm sure there would be pockets of people who would buy, but if you want to get mass people to buy it, of course it has to be a low price product and with a high volume. So that is a typical profitability model. As you rightly said about the employee first, the customer, and the investor, I slightly differ from you in that. For me, the business starts and ends with the customer, because your customer will help shape up the business. So if you have a specific customer, if you understand the customer his requirement, you have to work on it back end. So your employees fall in place, your investors fall in place, everything fall in place. But it is important to understand the customer. So I would keep the customer first, but at the same time, I would also keep profitability, as you can rightly say, that profitability, if you do not have the profitable one, you will not be able to, scale up, or you will not be able to have faith in your business model, putting too much of scaling it to growing too fast. Those businesses that are growing overnight, pumping in crores of rupees, and, building up an all India market. And then at the end of the whole process, they say we are not profitable. Perhaps you should take it by stages. You can break up your business into 3 stages, 4 stages, and get profitability every stage and go to the next level. After that, you can define your own milestone, but it is important to build a profitable business model and then scale it up. You can be profitable within a state, and work around that, build it up, make that as a successful model. Then when you scale up to the next level, you will have a lot of other variables also in the whole process, make that level profitable. So it is kind of a staircase model. We still believe that it is indeed a staircase model, and you will be able to succeed if you build a staircase model around it. And also keep focus on the repeat business, because your existing customer are your best benchmarks of your business model. If they buy again, you are on the right track. If they buy, two times, if they become your regular customer, you are on the right track. And more you can focus, maybe over a period of time, 60-70% of your business should come from repeat, and maybe 20-30% will come from the new customers. Keep that mix handy, and put all your resources in the whole process, and that gives a great. While this is not a formula for sustainability, these are some kind of a pointers which we feel, and I'm sure there are many more, but these kind of a snapshot pointers that are coming to me at this point in time. With that, my next question to Mr. Sharma is, Mr. Sharma, if you can throw some light, what could be the learnings from the failed startups of the country?
Okay. See, if we talk about why the top 10 reasons why startups fail, the top 10 reasons why startups fail, the first and foremost is 49% says there's no market need. You have created a product or a service for which there is no market exist. You are not, have not planned your strategy in such a manner that what a product or service you are offering, what kind of market exists for that. And going forward also, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, is it there going to be this market or not? Or something happens suddenly, abruptly, just after 1 year, something happens and they do market for their product. So that is the first and foremost reason why startups fail. You have not done your research properly in terms of acceptability of the product. Next is poor marketing. 23% reason which is a poor marketing. You're not being able to market your product properly. People are not even aware. And market is there, logistics is a problem. Somewhere, some combination is not being, worked out. It's not been coordinated properly. So there's a lack of coordination in marketing and logistic departments. Another is run out of cash. Why reason startup fail? You run out of cash also. You do not have enough money. How to make the business growing? Because of course, in the beginning, there can be a burning rate. Every month, how much you are burning towards customer acquisition cost. So that also matters a lot. You are running out of cash. You didn't scale. Like another very big reason of the startup failure is they are not able to scalable model. The model itself is not scalable. You can sell 100 products, 200 products, 1,000 products, but then after that, you just can't go beyond that. It is not as scalable as making it, 1 lakh products, or just able to market in entire city or entire world, entire country as a market. Can you see that? Scalability is an option. Scalability is there or not, checking that is a problem, can be. Then business model. The business model itself is not sustainable. That can be a problem. Difficult product realization. Product realization can be a problem. Product itself doesn't have much of the value. You're not able to give quality to the service. You're making money, the customer is there, but quality you are not being able to offer. So it's a poor quality product, then can be a reason for failures. And there can be problems. Another startup big reason for a failure is problems within the team. Suppose you have 4 or 5 people, you are not being able to gel up properly. आपका gelling ही अच्छे से नहीं हो पा रहा है. And that can be a big problem for startup failures. You're not in good terms with your investors. If you do not gel properly, if you do not work like a unit, that can be a big problem for a failure. That can be a big reason for your failures of the startups. Another is lack of focus. You guys are just not focused enough. You're doing 10 things at a time and not doing justice to even one of them. That can be a problem. The lack of focus. This is one of the big reasons for startup failures. Another can be one reason why startups fail is dependence on third parties. You are doing everything okay, but somewhere you are dependent on third party. Okay, when they will deliver, then we will go accordingly. And that somehow didn't click. Maybe you had forward integration or backward integration. You had some kind of a plan that didn't work out. So that was the reason for your failures. So there are, all in all, there are 10 reasons what we have figured out why startups fail. It all begins with no market need, poor marketing, run out of cash, you didn't scale properly, then scalability was a problem, poor product itself was a problem, lack of focus. You guys were not focused, and within the team there were problems and dependent on third party. So these were the problems which startups could have. Just coming to last 2 minutes of it, we have left. Just coming back to you for the last question, Abir. Uh, my question to you is, what do you think? What are the lessons learned from successful startups? As we discussed about failure startups, what do you think? What can be learned from successful startups? Yeah.
Right. Actually, you have already answered the most difficult question. So I'll be answering the easier part because successful startups, a lot of information is already available in the net, and we do experience a lot of, we buy things from them as well. So we kind of understand why they are working well also, though we are not satisfied with them, but at least, they have done certain things right. That's why they are the big startups. These are some names that I have and I've seen, most of these, all these names, and there are many more of them, all of these are actually have taken up technology as a base, and these are startups that are running for the last 10 years or so, and they have taken up technology as the base, but their markets were different, and they have taken unto and but now that we see everything is on technology base, during their time they were the first movers. Like Byju's were kind of the first mover in the education learning system. Nika was the kind of a first mover in the beauty and wellness. So during their time, they were in the first, kind of mover and leveraged on that and scaled up very fast. As you rightly said, they understand there's a market. Now, nobody thought of, food business to be delivered at home. Maybe they were the first ones, and of course, Zomato was also there, delivered at home, and that caught up. You saw how much benefit has happened during the COVID times where everything was delivered home front. So they kind of, it was a mix of their own gamble. Also, the market situation favored because nobody could predict COVID. But when COVID happened, all these technology guys had a huge accelerated mode, which wouldn't have